whole thing. It's good.
Well, Gary, now I've got you on. I've just started to record now, and I'm going to capitalize on you being here with Tom. And you know what it's like to win because you've done it. And now here you got to watch your son win in your dad's arena. Um, I just want you to describe that feeling and the experience for me and anybody else who's listening.
Well, I'll tell you, I was sitting there watching I guess the final seconds pound down. Well, first of all, it was, as you walk up to the rink and it's put, my dad's name on it and stuff. After all the years, Wally, and it goes a long ways back, starting into, the peewees and the bantams and the midgets and, the amount of successes in that rink. Just too many to count.
Yeah.
But, he scored the first goal of the game. And that's
your son, Riley. Yep.
Yeah. Yes. Riley scored the first goal. And, there was probably, I don't know, 75 people, relatives, and it's like everyone kind of looked up into the sky as if grandpa was watching down on him.
Yeah.
But then he played an outstanding game. The team played outstanding, they swept the team that was in first place.
Yeah.
And so from the goaltending to the team defense to, the offense, they found a way to win 4 straight.
And you mentioned to me their leading scorer was injured and he didn't play and you still won.
Yeah, that was kind of, where the depth kind of shone through. I think the team really had more depth and had played it, throughout the series. And, probably a good lesson for, anybody in the game of hockey. You get into a short series and, you need 3-4 lines going. And it gives some of the better players, the more talented players, a little bit more energy and to go do what they can do. So I think that,
Kerry, when you talked about, like I talk about 4-line hockey and short shifts, and you talk about your team finally in this series went to 3-line hockey. And most of the teams today appear to be 2-line hockey teams. And I think in AAA Midget, when Riley was playing, it might have been 1-line hockey. Can you talk about the managing of the bench and that concept and how it doesn't get results if you go to 1-line hockey and 2-line hockey you might, but 3-line hockey you will be more successful. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Over the years, I think that I've been involved in hockey, and I'm a big component of, creating a team, and teams will overcome other teams. And, having everybody feel a part is vital. But, I am a big 4-line component, and I really believe that the 45 to 50-second shift of high energy, for 60 minutes, can outdo teams that do the 2-line hockey.
Yeah.
There was a movement 30 years ago, where the 2-line hockey club just was running everything, and I thought there was a good movement towards more 4-line hockey, and I just keep on watching it. At every level, the teams that seem to be winning today are teams that create a team where everybody's needed and everyone chips in, plays hard, and it's dropping it down to 2 lines, and and I understand power play 1, power play 2, and penalty kill 1, penalty kill 2, and all that. But I think 5-on-5 hockey and everybody can penalty kill. That's with the way kids' skills are today. Getting kids on the ice and feeling a part of it is as important, as teaching a breakout.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it just keeps hitting me right in the forehead. Yeah. And I see so much of this, 2-line hockey now. disappointment for young athletes.
Yeah.
To work as hard as they have to work.
Yeah.
And then show up, when it's the time to play and they get to watch. And I think, that's something that, I think we just got to get better at.
Well, the NHL playoffs and the teams that win, they play 4-line hockey.
Yep. And they have to.
Yep. And all year in the NHL, they can play 2-line hockey. And those third and fourth lines get, their shifts 5-on-5 once in a while. And maybe a few of them are on penalty kill, but I think that you can't measure the effect of the emotions and the energy of some of the all of the players in that environment, and the fatigue at a level like that the Canucks are playing. There's no TV timeouts for extra breaks and breathing, recovery. So in minor hockey, there's the physiology of shift length, recovery time. It's a no-brainer, but it's forgotten about by many, many coaches, just trying to get the result and using the best player, most talented player, and not having the best team. So I'm glad you got to speak to that. And we've got Hal Terse has just joined us from Minnesota. Hi, Hal. Is your speaker going?
Doing, Hal?
My speakers are here. Good morning, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we've got Kerry Bracco on speakerphone, Hal.
Great.
Hal works in Minnesota, but he scouts for a team in the BCHL. He's one of those guys finding American players to go up there. But Hal's like me, and he's written materials back in the day for USA Hockey, but he and Tom and I are the same mold in terms of we come from that old school teaching progressions and teaching skating and fundamentals and growing up. But hell, Kerry Bracco's on. I coach him in minor hockey as a bantam, and we won the city championship and the provincial championship that year.
Nice.
And I coach him in junior A, and we won the provincial championship that year. And his dad has an arena named after him in town, and his son played in the final game of AJHL playoff, and they won the championships last night. Of course,
Cool.
5 of the teams have gone to your league, but they won the championship in the Ken Bracco Arena, and Riley got the first goal of the game. He's the son of Kerry, and Kerry's on today talking about it. And what we're talking about, Hal and Tom, you might chime in on this. In Minnesota, and Tom in the girls hockey Calgary, is there one-line hockey, like where they double shift the best players and play all the power play and penalty kill, or 2-line hockey, or is it 3 or 4? What is it now?
The team that won the Alberta League, the Edmonton team,
Yeah.
their top scorer got almost 3 points a game, and they play 30 minutes a game. An ex-Oiler coaches them.
What about you, Hal? What's your experience?
Well, we play all our kids. And in our last 2 games of the season, both against teams that we had beaten during the season, the other teams played about a line and a half.
Yeah.
And the games aren't, the games are only an hour. This is peewees or, whatever that is. You 14, 13, I don't know how old the kids are.
You 13, I
13,
think.
13-year-olds. And, the games aren't very long, so you can get away with doing that, I guess. That's when, the winning at all costs becomes, pretty prevalent late in the season. I don't know. I mean, I think a good coach can manage his bench properly to, make sure everybody gets ice time all the way through. But when the other team, when your third line's going out against their first line every time, it makes it a little challenging. We were competitive, but we didn't win the games. But, the season's over. nobody got hurt, and everybody got to play. I mean, I don't know. That's just, I have, over the years, Wally and Tom, I have, when I coached in the Edina program, a couple other programs around town, we won state tournaments or regional tournaments with third liners scoring the winning goals. And if they're sitting on the bench, we maybe don't win those games. So I don't know. Everybody's got a different approach to it. So if winning matters more than everything else, then I guess that's the way to do it. But I like all the kids to have an equal opportunity to learn and develop during the year, experience tough situations, and see what happens. So,
Tom, can you comment?
Well, first of all, why would you want to come to practice if you're never going to get on and play in the games? That's one of my philosophies.
oh,
And it's youth hockey. The idea is that everybody improves. And like this year, probably the last girl we chose because she could score and handle a puck, but wasn't a very great skater. We worked on skating so much, she was basically our best player the last 10 games. And her skating was really good. And, why would she come to practice for 6 months if she's sitting the bench all the time? So that's my philosophy.
Rick Puttick, are you on, Rick? Can you hear us?
I can, Wally.
Okay, Rick, we've got Carrie. Are you still on, Carrie Brackle?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm still on. Yeah.
Carrie, we've got these great midget coaches who have both won. Rick and Rick is coaching full time in Vulcan. It's a junior A program out there. They're getting kids that are on the cusp of making your junior A league or the BC Junior League. He's doing it full time now, and he's our age, Hal. He's been there, done that, up the ladder, and familiar with the coach education program and that. And Rick, we've been talking about bench management because Kerry's team won the Alberta Junior Hockey League last night. It's not his team.
Were you there, Rick?
No, Rick lives in Vulcan.
I thought I
No,
seen him.
I wasn't there, Kerry.
No. Jordan was at the game last night. I don't know if he got to see you, but he talked to your daughter. And
Yeah, I seen him from afar. There was an awful lot of alumni and a lot of people at the rink, so kind of lined up talking to everybody.
Yeah. Anyway, Rick, Kerry brought up the point that at the end of the year here in this playoff, their best player isn't able to play. He broke his hand or something, and they played 3-line hockey. They used everybody. I'm sure they had a 4th line, but they got spotted and they played, recovery minutes for the other lines. But most teams are playing 2-line hockey. And I'm curious about your philosophy coaching midget and now coaching junior. How do you manage the bench in terms of using all your players, getting the most out of them, and trying to get the best result? Rick?
Pretty much the same way I always have, Wally.
Can you elaborate that for Kerry and the listeners?
Yeah, essentially, I roll my lines. I have my line structure where I have top tier players playing together. And tearing down the line, everybody rolls off the line at the start of the game. Whether it's PK or a PP situation, the next line up gets to start. Towards the end of the game, depending on where we are situationally, we may make adjustments to that. If we're in a comfortable position, we just continue with that process. If we're in a situation where we need something to happen, one way or the other, tight game situation, we may make adjustments. Players are informed beforehand that this will be the structure. Starts right at day one and first day of camp. We're going to operate in this fashion. My philosophy is that if people don't play in situations, they don't know for themselves whether they can play. They don't have any feel for it, any confidence, and as a coaching staff, you don't know either. So you have to put them in there. You have to give them an opportunity to prove themselves, rightly or wrongly. And if they're proven to be efficient at it, that's great. You work with them to get better. And if they're proven not to be, you do likewise. You work with them and help them to get better. And you put them back in at first opportunity to see if they've actually learned anything and have they developed that confidence and that feel for it. A lot of it is just having done it, knowing that I can do it. I'm not too concerned about it moving forward. I've got the capability, and to me, that's confidence.
Yeah, I've watched Rick's teams a lot over the years, and he lives and dies by that philosophy, and it's the way it should be. One of the unfortunate things I'm starting to see too much of, Wally, is these kids and these athletes and these people who are playing hockey. I mean, it's a lot of energy, a lot of time, and then to go to the rink and and be a second, third class citizen on the airplane, it's not that much fun. And, it's one of the big concerns I have for junior hockey in BC, Alberta, across, the nations. And I'd be interested to know how, from what you see down in the States, because I know the NCAA and the universities are all around there, but and I'm sorry to go off this topic here, Wally, but we're starting to see 28-man rosters and 25-man rosters, and I watch and listen to the junior people, and and they have way more kids than what's necessary on a team.
Yep.
And that amount of not playing is, I just find it, mentally, not good for kids. How is it being handled in the U.S., Hal?
The U.S.
Yeah,
Some of these
programs down there, do they have 25 and 28-man rosters?
Well, they have 20-man rosters, but they got 30 kids in the locker room, and some of the teams do. The BCHL is only going to run about 23 or 24 kids. North American Hockey League, some of those teams go through 35 players during the course of the year, and some of them don't. There's 3 to 5 new teams every year, because the entry fee is $1.2 million to open up a business where you can lose $150,000 or $250,000 a year. And I've got a couple of kids I advise, or their parents are asking me about this new team in Watertown, South Dakota, which is a new franchise for the North American Hockey League. And they have not announced any coaching. They haven't announced any staff or anything at this point. And the boys that I advise are going out to Utah to play in a couple of different teams out there in the NCDC. There's a lot of competition for players, but then they hoard them too. So I don't know. And Minnesota kids are reluctant to travel very far from home. Whereas most kids in this country have already traveled a long ways from home during minor hockey. Kids from California end up in Michigan playing for Little Caesars and that kind of stuff. Or they go to Shattuck, or they go to places like that. Minnesota kids don't do that very much. So that's a challenge. It's a challenge for us to get Minnesota kids up in the BCHL, because it's a long ways from home, and it's hard for their parents to watch the games in person. So,
well, it's with mixed emotions, because there's two different philosophies in a lot of this stuff. And, watching the 5 teams get up and and leave Alberta, after a 60-year history, and most of those teams are when they operate, they over recruit, and you got to watch, and now you got to be careful too, because the junior guys, they just don't, they can't in their minds function with 4-line units or 3-line units, or kids don't get to play. And when you got 28-man rosters, it's tough to you just can't keep everybody happy. And it's not a question of keeping everybody happy. It's just that when you don't get to play, what's the real reason? Like it's just not healthy, in my opinion.
Yep.
I agree.
Well, Hal, I don't know if you or the listeners know, but Kerry was a general manager in the Western Hockey League with the Calgary Hitmen at one time. And so he's been experienced at that, Kerry. And actually, you managed to turn the franchise into a pretty successful one. And that's because of your business acumen, but also your sports acumen and knowing how to manage people and get people to form together. I mean, it is about leadership. And when you got involved in that Western Hockey League team and changed the culture and made it very successful, what were the numbers in that day and age?
In the Western Hockey League, in talking with my coaches at that time, because a lot of times they want to bring in the 16-year-old to kind of make sure that they that league doesn't lose them to the NCAA per se, Wally, right?
Yeah.
But it was 23 is what we ran with, and and at times when you're playing 72 games, it's not enough. So the junior guys will always say that there's injuries and they need X amount of players, and so we kept 23, and I don't know, I just got a soft spot. It just burns my soul when kids come to a rink and they don't play. And if you add the numbers up, so the Hitmen had quite a bit of success. And that's actually something else we'll chat a little bit about just quickly before I forget. So we had 23 there. The AJ is 25 now, and the BC will be 28. Hal, just before because the junior guys just can't help themselves, eh? And there are people, I guess, prepared, even though you tell them they're not going to get to play. Like a team like the Brooks Bandits or the Penticton V's. I mean, it's kind of it's horrible to watch the amount of guys who don't play. But they have such a leaders, and they have a model that gets the best of the best, and so that's kudos to them in some ways, but kudos to them in watching the aftermath of a kid sitting there for 40 games and not touching the ice. That sort of stuff shouldn't be happening. But one of the interesting things about last night, and I think the coach of the Calgary Canucks was the best player on the Hitmen when I was the GM, Brad Moran, and he was coaching the Canucks last night. And his the defense, and so having success with the Hitmen, I think we went to the Western Final, and he was a major part of it. And the assistant coach of the Canucks last night, Matt Robinson. So we were sitting around after, and of course Matt played on the 2003 team that we won the Air Canada Cup with.
That's the National U18 Championship, Hal.
So I'm sitting there after, and you got Brad Moran, who's got his shirt in the rafters of the Saddle Dome, and Matt Robinson, a 5-time KHL All-Star, but both of them came from programs, the North Stars, and Brad's case was Abbotsford, but it was quite a treat for me to be sitting there with two former people that I was involved in either coaching or managing, and they're now coaching and managing and doing a pretty good job.
Well, I've always said you look at the people that coach today and you look at who coach them and you know who they are. We know those people. So good coaches breed good leaders, and they breed, develop good players to become good leaders and become good coaches. So it's sort of the way the wheel turns up here.
I've got something to add too, Wally.
Okay.
Well, because I was 23 different college teams, and for a player to play, they have to be a full-time student. So we basically carried 25 because if there's injuries or whatever, you need those players. And my most success was I would dress the 20 players that were the best that week at practice. So that created a little bit of internal competition. And you absolutely have to have extra players. And I know the state women's team this year, 6 girls flunked out at Christmas. They ended up with 14 skaters down the stretch. So of course, one of the things you have to do is monitor their, that sort of thing. But at college, you basically have to have more than 20 players.
Kerry, you've talked to me about not in the Canucks organization and all those junior A organizations. It's a full-time job for the player today.
Yes.
Can you talk about the degree of commitment the players have to in terms of their time and dedication to do everything? We didn't do that back in your day of junior A. But can you talk about the change in culture and the way the sport's gone?
It's got some good parts to it, and it's got some parts that I'm a little bit concerned about, to be honest with you. You don't have a job and play junior hockey anymore, and and it's tough to go to school because of early mornings, working out. It's a 6 to 8 hour day in preparation to play junior hockey, which ultimately, I guess, preparing to spend 4 years in school somewhere playing. But it has become an interesting way that and that's one of the reasons why when you put that much time and energy into it it's almost like a full-time job, and then you don't get to play. You can really see kids tailing off, and even guys that are playing. And I'm probably a little bit more, which is challenging, and everybody knows the 365 day a year, commitment that kids and parents and have to make to be successful. Now, I guess how much is enough? Should there be that much that it takes to be successful? I don't know. Mentally, I think you got a lot of tired people, an awful lot. And I think one of the reasons there's a lot of injuries is because the game's faster, more competitive. But I also think there's a lot more tired people playing the game and mentally not as sharp because they're on the ice or training, basically 365 days a year. There's got to be some sort of balance. And I'm sure the good programs find a little better balance, but it's a lot to ask.
Rick, I got a question for you. Out there in Vulcan in your league, you're recruiting players from everywhere. In fact, you might be interested in, the Canucks not keeping a player and a player still wants to play at that level, and your team might be a model that he could play there and get to the next level. But how do you manage their time during the full day? Are their kids working? Are they going to school? They're doing extra stuff in your league there. Can you talk on that?
Well, we had players in both categories. A couple that had part-time jobs, and a couple that were going to school physically in the community, and others that were online learning. But our normal week would run. We had I practice on ice practice Monday through Thursday, unless we were traveling. Games were Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They had a dryland session most afternoons after the skate. So yeah, as Kerry suggested, it becomes a bit of a full-time situation, and ours isn't quite as intense as say the AJ or definitely the Dub would be. Ours is a program that we're trying to, as you suggested, if the Canucks had a player that they couldn't keep, and needed a place for him to grow and develop, we'd like to be that place. And it's prepping them for what's coming, for what they aspire to be and to do long term. It's a proving ground. It's a training ground. It's a ground where an environment where they get accustomed to that kind of a regimen, that kind of a commitment.
Well, Kerry, I hope you can connect with the organization, and Brad in particular, with those kinds of players, and send them Rick's way to help him with his roster. But you know, the way he coaches and develops players, they're going to be better players if they come back to you. So I'm glad you got to talk on that, Rick. Tom, I'm going back to the minor elite hockey, and you had a U15 team last year, U13 the year before. What about their day-to-day routine? How demanding is it for them? The dry land you did, and some of them are playing school sports at the same time. You got anything to comment on there? Is it too much? Are they pretty balanced? Or
Well, they do. We practice twice a week. There is one dry land and usually 2 games. So they're going 6 days a week. I get, or what's that? 5 days a week.
yeah,
And tell you the truth, I would have liked to have one more practice. I guess the AAA's go 3 practices a week, but it is pretty demanding. And what is really demanding is we practice at 4 o'clock on Thursdays usually. So the parents got to get, none of these kids can drive, and midget is different. Kids can drive each other, you know, in the U18. So the parents, basically, they have to really work together to pool and pick up kids or leave work early. And I was really impressed because basically we had 100% people at practice, you know, except for a good reason. And they had to really scramble to do that. So it's a huge commitment for sure.
Tom, you know, the very first year you coached, and they introduced an extra U13 girls elite team. And it's sort of a wake-up call for those young players that play in community. And I wonder if you could describe your frustration and how you dealt with it, because you never experienced before the lack of commitment of the community players wanting to play elite.
Well, when we started, you know, the parents it's the parents really, because the parents, those kids can't go anywhere. And we practiced all over the city. And this is one of the biggest land area cities in the world. We go 25 kilometers south or 25 kilometers north to different arenas. And the first part of the year, we were 50-50 because we were always having 3-4 players miss every practice. And I finally talked to the parents and just said, look at this. We can't do anything if half the kids don't even know what we're doing. And they were really good after that. And I don't think they were even aware that it was that important. And then, you know, we did really, really well after that and basically lost the city final in a game we dominated. So, yeah, it took the parents a while to get used to that. They had to do